For joining this afternoon. We're so excited you could make it. We're just giving it another maybe 10 seconds as people are still joining us on Zoom. And we don't want them to miss anything, so we'll just hold for a bit. And just to note, we are recording this, so we will post the recording on the landing page. If you miss any part of the webinar today, you will be able to find it there. But I think we have reached our top here and we'll get started. So as I said, welcome. We're so excited you were able to join us this afternoon to learn more about the AV Observation Zone Challenge. I'm Lizette Arias, the Senior Communications Manager at US Ignite. We will be learning about the AVO Zone Challenge this afternoon, and I'm excited that you could all make it. I'm only trying to stall a little bit because I still see people coming in. So thanks everyone for joining and being patient as we get started and let everyone in. So a little bit about what this webinar is going to provide you. First, we'll hear a little bit about our partners and what their role is in the challenge. Then we're really going to get into what the AVO Zone Challenge is about, and we'll hear directly from DDOT about the challenge statement, the objectives, the pilot and technical details, and why you should be participating in this exciting opportunity. We'll also go over some of the rules and the timeline for the AVO Zone Challenge, and we'll provide you instructions on how to submit your proposals and an overview of how you will be evaluated. So throughout the program, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them on the chat button function at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those questions at the end. If you think of questions at the end as well, we will have an opportunity to answer them and provide you some responses. If we don't get to all the questions, we will post an FAQ on the website for you to look at a later time. But with that, let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, I'm Lizette Arias, and I only mentioned it again because a few more people joined. I'm with US Ignite. I deal with the communications work at the organization. We will be hearing from Stephanie Duck from DDOT, but right now I do want to turn it over to my colleague, Eric Warner, who will walk you through US Ignite and what we're about.
Thank you, Lizette. I'm Eric Werner, a program director here at US Ignite, and I want to thank you for participating in this information session on the AVO Zone Challenge. We are very excited to be working with DDOT and are looking forward to seeing the innovative proposals the challenge will generate. For a quick background on US Ignite, we are a national nonprofit that operates like a tech startup, helping communities, cities, and military bases deploy connected smart city solutions. We bring together a cross-sector expertise from government agencies, universities, and industry leaders to identify solutions that address their toughest operational challenges. For those of you familiar with US Ignite, you know we've already completed several challenge competitions for our community members and even managed autonomous vehicle pilots for Fort Carson and MCAS Miramar under our Smart Base portfolio. Our role in the challenge is to connect DDOT with innovative technology providers and identify solutions that can improve how AV activity is monitored and evaluated in the district. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to DDOT's Innovation Brand Manager, Stephanie Dock.
Well, thanks for being here today. As mentioned, I'm with the innovation group here at the District of Columbia Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C., and really wanted to kind of bring in this project has quite a few partners involved. A key one is the Southwest Business Improvement District. They are one of our business improvement districts that supports local businesses and kind of does a lot of placemaking work in their areas. And they've had a project for a few years with one of their neighboring business improvement districts to do a mobility innovation district, as they're calling it. And so that was a really great opportunity for us to try and leverage the mid work to then bring the project in as a focus area. So the project is actually occurring in the Southwest Business Improvement District area and in the Capitol Riverfront or Navy Yard neighborhoods. And then we've brought in 2 academic partners. We have the George Washington University here in Washington, D.C. So a great partner in Dr. Samar Hamdar, who has been working on kind of a lot of autonomous vehicle things and trajectory data for quite some time, and excited to work together with someone right here in our backyard. And then we also have the University of Washington Mobility Innovation Center, Dr. Jeff Mann and Bart Treese as key partners there. This is partly to build on some work that they have been looking at doing in Seattle. We got chatting and discovered that we had a lot of very overlapping interests. And the Mobility Innovation Center there also has some additional expertise to kind of with working with startups and the academic connections in particular, which US Ignite brings to the table as well, but it was kind of a nice synergy that we were looking for. And then finally, I'm with the District Department of Transportation. We are the city, state, county, all-in-one Department of Transportation for here in Washington, D.C. And this project is funded through our research program, which is a federal highway formula funded program that we get every year. And we're using a portion of our funds to support this project. So the other piece, though, is that my team is not just the research, but we are also responsible for autonomous vehicle oversight. And that's where this project comes from. Sorry, you can advance. That was me moving on. So really what this came from is, so the district currently allows testing of autonomous vehicles, and at the moment they do have to be driver in. You cannot do any driverless testing on our streets, but you are allowed to engage the automated driving system if you have notified, the company has notified us that the vehicle is here and informed us which vehicles and their drivers that are there, and report any crashes when the ADS is engaged. But we are looking toward a future where more testing, and we have legislation before our council right now looking to authorize deployment of autonomous vehicles potentially. And I know that there's movement on potential legislation on the congressional side as well. So there might be some federal action on this. And so with all of that in mind, we've really been thinking about how are we going to know what's going on in this space. And the example I give is I had a colleague on my team who was off in San Francisco and came back and reported, oh my goodness, that AV almost ran over my toes. Well, this is a useful insight, right? I put on my regulator cap and I think, well, that doesn't sound great. Maybe we need to check what they're doing. But the truth is that just being told that that happened, while it's still a valid observation, doesn't have any of the context that goes with it. And so was somebody turning that corner? Did they expect that the autonomous vehicle would behave differently and that's why they noticed it? Was it actually a really dangerous encounter? And if it was a dangerous encounter, is that how it always turns the corner? Or was this a really kind of unusual one-off? And the only way to get to that information is to have more consistent observation going on. So the idea is that we will track what's going on with the AVs specifically, but there's also a need to understand the contextual environment. And a lot of the tools that currently exist, whether it's a camera or a LiDAR or something else that I don't yet know about, that can come in. They also do it often on the edge processing of what's happening on our streets, recording counts and, near misses or near hits, things that are happening. So what we are looking for is a tool that is slightly beyond the standard ITS options available right now, because in this case, I want it trained to identify, or we want it trained to identify when an AV has come into view, snap on, record that movement, and pass it to our university partner, who will then be able to help with the evaluation. And as I mentioned at the start, this is a research project, so we don't have all of the pieces of this fully sorted out because we're figuring out feasibility as well as what we would want to measure, hoping to build those out into tools in the longer term that will help us to do more across the city and trying to prepare for what we will do if we have broader deployment of autonomous vehicles. We can go to the next slide. So the AVO challenge, the Autonomous Vehicle Observation Zone Challenge, seeks to innovative solutions that will enable DDOT to monitor AV operations, capture meaningful operational data, and enhance transparency to inform oversight, regulatory decisions, and the district's future policies on AV testing and operations. And critically, this is The team at DDOT that is doing this is also the one that is responsible for a lot of the oversight, shaping the regulations, but we'd also like to be able to have this data to share, and that's that last point there about provide data and insights out to our council, to our public, and to regulators in other jurisdictions as we're talking about what's going on. And not least, which might be, of course, the people across the street from our office at the US Department of Transportation, the zone that we have a lot of federal friends right in our backyard, which can be helpful. So we're aware that the baseline solution might already somewhat exist, but that we need to layer something on top of that. In terms of the challenge objectives, this is something that we do want to test out here on our streets and generate useful behavioral analytics. I will say there's an interesting timing element here. The districts, if you're much familiar with traffic signals, see as it's been, I'm not an expert. I'm not a signal timing engineer or civil engineer in that space, but we're basically running 1980s tech on some 1970s communication infrastructure. And they have stopped making replacement parts for that old infrastructure, particularly the signal controllers. So we are in the process of upgrading our entire signal system to newer controllers. And this opens a window where this project is happening right at a moment when we're about to be able to do a lot more with our signals that we have not been able to do in the past, and things that sensors at our intersections could help inform. And there is another project that's exploring some of this. There was on the same corridor. It's a little bit earlier. It was done with ITS America. So some pieces to come out of that. It's too late to join that one, but just to know that we're trying out a lot of things right now in preparation for future down the line that we might have use for this. And that's where I think this is a critical piece, that it's not enough to just see the AVs. We also need to understand what's going on there and understand how we could use the insights that you can help us garner about how our streets are operating, so that these are multifunctional assets that meet a lot of needs across the district. I will say we are making sure that we have the upgraded controllers already installed at the intersections involved in this project. We will have smart things, and hopefully we will have fiber at both intersections, fingers crossed, working on that. But this is really like part of the stepping stone into the future of what we're going to be able to do. And so this project is trying to set us up both to support the broader agency needs around operations, but also really and safety, the kind of what are the safety applications, what are the operational applications, as well as how do we do this to support our AV observation and conversations with industry and shaping how that comes into our space. So the two locations that we have kind of keyed in on are along the M Street corridor, southeast and southwest. So we're particularly looking for M Street and 4th Southwest. This is next to the Waterfront Metro Station. It has bus stops, it has bike lanes, it has bike activity in the area. It's not too far from there's a cluster of development right here. There is, in addition, a few blocks away, there is a very large development that has come in the last half decade or so, that is at the wharf. So there's a lot of activity. We know there's a lot of lanes involved here, so that it's, might be a lot to watch. We're interested if you need to narrow that down. And the second intersection is M Street and New Jersey Avenue Southeast. This one has bike movements in 4 directions, a bidirectional bike lane on the south side, bike lanes in the same protected bike lanes in the same direction of travel. On New Jersey Avenue, it's next to the Navy Yard Metro Station. And it has, and also incidentally, might be of interest, the US Department of Transportation's office headquarters are right there on the southwest or southeast corner of this intersection. So it's literally right outside their door. And this intersection is also very close to Nationals Ballpark, where our baseball stadium is. So we do get a large, during baseball season, we get large pedestrian flows coming through as well. So lots of interesting multimodal movements happening at both of these intersections with their proximity to transit, bus service. There are bus lanes as well on M Street over on the southeast side. So the New Jersey and M Southeast does have bus lanes as well. So it's lots of different activities, lots of people moving through, and we're hopeful that leads to a lot of interesting insights and opportunities to observe interactions in a way that a quieter or more vehicular focused intersection might not. We're also interested in, if folks are able to do it, just a straight road segment, probably along M Street as well. And that would be to, kind of testing the ability in the future to do things like observe curbside pickup drop-off activity, or how they handle mid-block interactions, rather than the complexities of the intersection. So why should you come participate in our project? There is money on the table. It's not a huge amount, but we're hopeful that it's something to help compensate you for your efforts. You really get to demonstrate this in a real world urban deployment. We are certainly interested in talking about this project with a wide range of stakeholders, including our peer cities. We want to, kind of you can help us push forward the future of this space and how we talk about how AVs are coming into cities, which we think is going to be very important, particularly with kind of the rise in a lot of robotaxi activity right now, but more to come, whether it be in transit, maybe even in personally owned eventually. So this is, we think, with context, that there's a lot of really interesting movements here and a lot of interesting work to be had. And I will pass it back to Eric.
Eric, you're muted.
Sorry. Should know that one by now, right? So thank you, Stephanie, for sharing the district's perspective on the goals and objectives of the challenge. In the following slides, I'll walk through the design of the challenge and how you can apply. I encourage everyone to start their journey at the US Ignite hosted challenge website, which is shown here, where you will find all the latest information about the program, as well as key documents that you'll need to reference to complete your proposal. This challenge is designed around a single phase, which is application review and winner format, which will ultimately result in a contract award with US Ignite to conduct a 6-month pilot of the winning solution in the district serving DDOT and their academic partners. The first step in this process is to download the participant package that provides a comprehensive description of the challenge, plus 2 appendices that include the proposal template and the detailed technical requirements. If you encounter issues or need additional information, simply email us at challenges@usignite.org, which is also shown on this slide. Let's review the timeline. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Important dates and timeline for the challenge. We've launched the challenge last week on June 4th, and we are 1 week into the open application period today on June 11th. We ask that you submit your questions by June 19th, and we'll aim to get answers compiled and posted to the website by June 25th. Please keep in mind the last day to submit a proposal is July 16th of this year by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The proposals will be distributed to a panel of judges with the goal of selecting a winner and making a joint press release announcing the winner at the end of August. The remainder of the dates are targets that allow for a 6-month pilot while completing the entire program by the end of August of next year. We've left a generous amount of time between the announcement in August and January pilot start date to accommodate contract execution and vendor preparation for the pilot. There is an opportunity to accelerate the timeline and start the pilot earlier than January of 27 if those steps are completed earlier. The Transportation Research Board, TRB, annual meeting will be held in DC on January 10th to the 14th, and this provides an unique opportunity to demo the solution to TRB attendees. So something to keep in mind when you propose. Next slide, please. The challenge is broadly available to all applicants. The guidance provided here is essentially frames the eligibility criteria as an applicant capable of executing a contract with US Ignite and deploying the solution in DC for the pilot period. Please see the participant package for more detailed information on this eligibility requirements. Slide. So here are the major sections of the participant package I mentioned earlier. Look to the body of the document for information specific to the mechanics of the challenge. This will include the timeline, proposal requirements, evaluation criteria, budget preparation, and submission details. To help our panel of judges, a proposal submission template is provided in Appendix A. We've tried to align the template contents with the evaluation criteria to make it straightforward to submit your information. If there's not a specific section for elements of your solution description, use your best judgment and provide as much detail as you can in the most appropriate section. Finally, we've included Appendix B, documenting the technical requirements developed in conjunction with our academic partners that help further define DDOT's expectations from the proposals. Next slide. Now that you're familiar with the challenge design, proposal format, and technical requirements, let's review the submission process. July 16th is 5 weeks away, and we ask that you submit your proposal to the challenge's email prior to the 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time deadline. Keep in mind the page limits noted in the participant package for the various sections, and be sure your file size does not exceed the email limit of 50 megabytes. Once we receive your proposal, we'll send a confirmation email as proof of submission. Next slide. So DDOT will select a panel of judges to evaluate the challenge proposals. The participant package includes this table of evaluation criteria, which are also reflected in the submission template. The top 4 criteria are weighted equally at 20% each, starting with the core capability to detect the AVs, followed by capturing the traffic behaviors of all roadway users, the output of which is high-quality data delivered to our academic partners. Then finally, the applicant's ability to successfully complete the demonstration pilot is the 4th weighted factor there. Your team's prior experience in deployments, as well as examples of community engagement, round out the final criteria. With that, I'll conclude on to the next section, which is our question and answer.
Thank you, Eric. So I think we have a couple questions from the chat. Yes, so let's get into it. I'm going to stop sharing the slides so that we can see each other a little bigger. I think that's helpful sometimes. And let me read the first question. From Calvin, for the AV you are seeking to monitor, will they be clearly identifiable in the field? For example, will they be branded vehicles such as Waymos or vehicles equipped with visible sensor suites and AV hardware? Or should participants assume that some target vehicles may appear similar to conventional vehicles?
At this time, the folks that we have, and I should have mentioned this when I was talking, but Waymo and Zoox are both testing here. Waymo has their Jaguar I-Paces currently, and Zoox is here with their Toyota Highlander test vehicles, not the poster-like ones for deployment. And we have had passing through a few others. At this point, everybody that has come through has fairly visible sensor suites and would be we assumed that would be the method of identification. That may change in the future. So if you have thoughts on how to find them by means other than just what they look like, I'm all ears. But that's what we're assuming right now. Or they will be branded on the side in some fashion. Most of them do carry external identifiers as well. And as part of the testing notification to us, it is very possible for us to at least get an understanding of what vehicle is coming in. And we're in conversations with the operators that are here to see where if there's need on this project to partner with them, how we can get their assistance in enabling some of this. Eric, if you want to say that better.
Yeah, no, for Stephanie, could you expand on the license plate reading and how that works with DDOT?
So we do know the license plates of all the vehicles, or supposed to know all the license plates of the test vehicles that are here. So it does mean that we have a validation method, but we would not like to rely on the license plate readers as part of the primary identification. But we will be able to kind of help confirm that they were found if you have an LPR feature in there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add there's no real-time expectations here. So if logged collection of license plate readers is available, to verify the detections afterwards, that's also totally appropriate.
So, Stephanie, can you repeat the name of the professor for academic partner for George Washington University? Or
Matthew already responded. It's Samer Hemdar.
Oh, okay, great. Awesome. The next question is, will this be observed from already established traffic cameras, or will there need to be hardware installed in specific areas?
Our assumption is that you will likely need to install software, or sorry, not software, hardware. Um, uh, we do have CCTV cameras out on the system. We do not record those cameras, and they are all pan tilt zoom. So to be able to do more fixed observation on the intersections, it is probably preferable to add something, as well as if there's any sort of edge processing that you want to do. We are pretty restrictive in who we give kind of behind the firewall access into the system. And so the preference is largely that not you necessarily adding on something to our existing cameras just for the cybersecurity reasons. But we can, if there is a version that would like to use the CCTV cameras, we're open to that and can discuss that.
Another question came in. Can you provide more information regarding the signal upgrades, including controller upgrades and other technology being deployed?
Yes, the system is currently on 70s, and we will be upgrading to, I don't know how signal specific you want to be, and I'm not sure the contracts will actually name the specific controller, but it will be an ATC, Advanced Traffic Controller. If you want to get into the details of the fancy communication protocols and all of that, I apologize. You will need to submit that as a written question because we've hit the limit of my signal controller knowledge. So if there's like a specific thing you need to know, but I think my hope is that you will be able to you'll be able to receive signal phase and timing, but it would be a one-way feed out. The assumption is not that you will be feeding information into our controllers.
And just a reminder, everyone, you will be able to submit questions to email challenges@usignite.org. The next question is from Michael Coast. This is focused on AV identification and behavior detection. Is this because there is already a solution or data being collected to track behavior of regular car, bike, pedestrian traffic?
No. So our hope is that you actually, in a sense, can do, the dream is that you do both, and in a more privacy protecting manner. So Eric, this might be going too far, but my dream scenario is that you are edge processing data about what's happening at the intersection. This is a tool that I know we can buy from many different vendors right now. If you put the sensor up, it edge processes, we get in that. The piece that we are then trying to get is actually the raw feed of what you're seeing when an AV comes into view. There are also scenarios where we may want the ability to also pull the raw feeds of how the human-driven vehicles are doing this. That would depend on what is needed to be able to do comparison. So to my opening example, that car turned that corner too fast. I want to be able to compare it to how the AVs have been taking that corner on a regular basis so that we kind of have the distribution of the speeds with which they take it. And then secondly, need to be able to compare it to how the humans are taking that corner, right? And finally is the comparison of like the trajectories of the interacting vehicles, which I think is what you're getting at there is the other side. But we really don't have any of those solutions deployed. We have some early tests of some of those, but we don't have that systematically across our system. And that's because our controllers have been almost all operating on fixed time, and they're quite old and there's no value to us putting video detection out at the intersections because it doesn't feed into how the controllers operate. That part that's changing. So we have not really had need for that. So our CCTV cameras have been providing us understanding of the intersections, but they have not been used to gather, for the most part, to gather kind of that baseline data. And we have not systematically deployed any sort of sensor that does that across the system to measure trajectories or near misses.
Thank you. So the next question is a three-part question. Who will be coordinating with these proposers to install cameras and potentially pull permits if needed? What sort of incidents or behaviors are we looking for? Are there evaluation criteria for the AVs they're looking for?
Well, I can definitely tackle the first one. We'll be working with you to figure out the the installation and the permit pulling. We have only one, it's either our team that will install or we have one contractor that we allow to touch our system. So please do not pull permits. That will be from us. We also don't charge ourselves for our own permits, so we can make this more affordable. Yeah, so that will be done in coordination with our ITS maintenance program, and making sure that we get that sorted out. But we'll take care of that side of. We'll work with you, but it will not be you directly doing the installs on your own. In terms of incidents or behaviors that we're looking for, this is still quite broad. The idea is that it is an observation zone. This isn't an enforcement activity. This is, we have automated safety cameras that help us with enforcement. Really what we're trying to just understand is how the vehicles are moving in our environment and how might it be changing the way that our transportation system operates in the long term. That's like the biggest picture view of all of this. Eric, I don't know if there's any bit more specificity you want to provide from the application materials on, I think there were some set movements we were talking about as like a bare minimum,
I
right?
was quickly scanning the packet because our academic partners provided some description. So my reference or my request would be to refer in the technical requirements section of the participant package for additional details.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Are there any STEM or STEAM school students that would be able to participate in this program?
Great question. Would love to have more of the kind of the high school. Assume by STEM and STEAM you're leaning high school. But if you are, we already have the academics somewhat coming in on the universal. But yes, we have some connections out to some of our STEM programs across the DC public schools and a couple of the charters. If that's a point that you're really interested in pursuing, we can definitely work on making some connections once the students are back in. I don't know that there is one immediately in the vicinity of the test area, but these students are really good at moving around the city. So I trust that we can engage with ones that are a little bit further afield.
Great. So are there any goals around privacy, or is the goal to have a live video feed and similar to CCTV? Thank you.
Yeah, privacy
Yeah.
is definitely a goal here. And I should say one piece I didn't mention in the intro, I didn't write as many good notes as Eric did, is there is an element to this project where we are also seeking to work with the community. There is not a presumption of privacy in public space. The district does not have a privacy ordinance. Washington, DC is a space where you might just assume that there's certain levels of surveillance just always happening, but that doesn't mean that we need to be contributing to the increased surveillance unnecessarily. So there's two pieces here. One is a live feed is actually not desirable at all. The district there's like a delay requirement on any live feeds coming from the road. So we don't just post up live feeds of what's happening on there. And so that's where we're looking for only limited snippets to be recorded to what the movements that we want. And just for data transmission purposes, it is also quite a bit to try and run a full feed. But yeah, and so the hope would be that applying privacy filters as appropriate and adding edge processing where possible is the ideal state. And in the longest term, where we figure this out in the pilot, we get to a point where we're very comfortable where somebody's detections are correct. And we know the exact metrics that we want. I think the hope would be that maybe in the future, this entire thing would be edge processed and you would be comparing the AVs to human driven or whatever observation we're doing on autonomous vehicles, based largely on edge process data with even lower levels of raw data feeds. But we're not at that point. It's not a true fishing expedition, but it's still quite broadly defined as to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And too broadly defined to do it entirely edge processed.
Yeah, and to expand on that, our partners at GW will be managing the data management plan as well. And so if you look at the participant package under section 7 and also section 8, it highlights some of those features regarding data management and data privacy. So fundamentally, the packet is requesting that applicants, shall describe the privacy protections they would consider putting in place, and then how that might align to the DDOT's policies currently. So we recognize that this isn't a full-on DDOT compliant installation in that sense of but we're asking applicants to provide as much information they can on their solution set.
Awesome. For the snippets you mentioned, is there a required amount of hours per day?
There's a lot of unknowns. Because I don't actually know where the autonomous vehicles are going right now. So it kind of depends how frequently they're passing through the zone. And if there's an increase in activity, that would change the amount of snippets that are kind of coming through.
Question from Eunice, what are the inputs in visual understanding? Are we scoping only traffic cameras, or will other inputs like dash cameras from other vehicles be included? And also you mentioned multimodal understanding. Are we talking about traffic logs like sensors that output text and audio as well?
I am a transportation person. Multimodal in this context means different modes of transportation. So that would be bus, bike, pedestrian, cars, trucks. Those are all the different modes that are in multimodal there. In terms of the visual understanding, we are targeting a fixed infrastructure deployment. The ability to kind of get the systematic patterns and do the comparisons, we think is most clear from watching from above on the infrastructure. But if I think a dash cam could be included, but it's a coverage question of making sure that they would be able to kind of systematically capture what was happening.
I think this will be the last question unless one comes in as we are answering. The winner is not required to install the hardware. So what skills sets or expertise are you looking for in the AVO Zone Challenge?
Your expertise in what the sensor should be and the operation of it, right? When I say we're installing it, like we're just literally the ones putting the screws on the pole and installing the power tap, like all the rest of the system, except insofar as it's leveraging any of our data or systems, right? If you need I don't know, Eric, is there a different angle
Yeah, I
to
think
this that I'm missing?
the point here is that it's a vendor equipment, but DDOT is assisting in the installation given the infrastructure is their poles and traffic cabinets, like traffic controller cabinets and power supplies. So DDOT's making these available, but you need to work with DDOT staff to connect up your equipment.
Awesome. We did get a couple more questions from Ravi. Any possibility of mandating the operating AV vehicles to share their sensor fusion data set, including object trajectories?
Mandating, no. If we had our permitting program in place, we would have more data about where the vehicles have been. We will need a separate conversation to discuss where we stand on all of the regulatory space, but to say we know that they're here and they are allowed to be here, but that I promise anything more at this time. However, like I said, we are talking to the companies to see if there's opportunities. We are hoping that this challenge, while it is informing our activities, might also be something that is useful to them, and we're interested in kind of collaboratively moving the industry as a whole moving it all forward. So they do tend to be very sensitive about anything about their vehicles, so I wouldn't count on that. But if you have industry connections and would like to try and convince them to share, but they tend to be quite leery of particularly letting us see anything more than they have to. Not like in a bad way, just, this is a competitive marketplace. There's a lot of money tied up in these things. And there, is always concern that we are the regulator. So we're trying to kind of hold a line there about not asking for things that we can't have or that they definitely won't share.
When you refer to AVs, are you focused solely on road-going passenger vehicles, or should they also be considering autonomous systems operating in the public realm, like sidewalk delivery robots, autonomous shuttles, or other robotic mobility devices?
So we probably won't be dealing with the sidewalk delivery robots. Those will be present. We have that's a permitted structure. We'll be getting more data from them. And I don't know that any are going to be down in this area at this time. So we're really focused on the on-road vehicles. That said, it doesn't have to be a passenger vehicle. If we did have a freight vehicle come through to test, if we had a transit vehicle come through, all of those are kind of eligible uses, but we're really focused on the on-road component. And there's a couple reasons, but one of them is the permitting structure is different on that, but the rules of the road have a very distinct set of, this is what you shall do. Sidewalks are a little more loose. Like, it's kind of understood that you walk on the right side of the road, but that isn't a hard and fast rule. Whereas you do drive on the right side of the road, or you're going to have some problems. So it's a different level of observation if we were to start watching the sidewalks as well. Not opposed, but it's definitely not the focus of, it's not the purpose of this project. It's not the focus. We'll be watching those in other ways.
Excellent. So I think the last two questions here, if you were to summarize the total output data from this challenge, what insight are you hoping to capture from it?
I would go back to the opening story, right? I'm trying to understand, how are the vehicles typically moving through the environment? How does that compare to the public's expectations of how they should move through the environment? And what does it mean for the operations of the transportation system in that area more generally, right? So this is, yeah, Eric, I don't know if you have.
No, and I think to expand on your point, we've included in the package that says, here's some base behaviors, but we want to understand your ability to be scalable and dynamic. So this idea that we're having community engagement. So if there's some feedback that says, distance from curb or some other behavior is sensitive to the community members, then how can you adapt your system to actually monitor those as well? So that's kind of the scaling and adaptability question as well in the packet.
Awesome. Are there any restrictions on sensor computing vendors like Chinese hardware normally prohibited under FAR?
Yes, so we are not buying the equipment. This is just a temporary installation. So the Buy America, whatever BABA stands for, the other half of that, doesn't fully come into effect in some ways on this project, but it does mean, but we are looking forward to the future, right? And our hope would be that whoever we're deploying here, we are then able to more broadly deploy. So we do need to comply with federal requirements on this, and we would prefer a solution that would be able to be something that we could procure in the long term.
Yeah, or fundamentally provide a roadmap to compliance. So if you're like, this is sensor, it's hot off the presses, that we don't know if we can confirm the Chinese chip at this time, but we have a roadmap to get that compliance in the future. That'd be
excellent. We got a last really great question. Does the solution need to be built by the July 16 deadline, or is there time to build it after that deadline?
Eric, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's really the submission deadline is the 16th. The pilot target date is January of 2027. So ultimately, if there's a path to having a functional product by that deployment period, so DDOT's goals are minimum 3, ideally 6 months of service. And so currently the timing is offset to the end of the program to allow some buffer for the vendor to prepare for deployment. So if your solution needs to be essentially developed in that time period, there is period between August and January where there's some window. It would play into our contracting with US Ignite, but we can work with the solution provider to see if it's how close you are to a viable solution and then what scope and scale it might be. That's fair.
And as an added incentive for slightly faster, if you are able to be deployed by the first week of January, the Transportation Research Board has their annual meeting here in DC every year. I think this year might be one of the later ones, so it's like the first full week in January. And we would be interested in offering, tours of the area to come talk about the tech that we've deployed and what we're doing with this project, and I think we'll get some good interest. So for anyone interested in also using this as opportunity to showcase your good work, we are with you. And that meeting is a great opportunity to get some folks to really get eyes on what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's the 10th to the 14th of January.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for letting us know more about the AVO Zone Challenge and also for all the great questions we've received this afternoon. We will be posting them on the landing page on US Ignite's website. If you have more questions, please send them to challenges@us-ignite.org. We're happy to collect them through June 19th. So make sure you get your questions in by June 19th so that we can answer them and post the updated FAQ on the website. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Eric. And thank you, Dom, who's been on the background. Thanks all, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
You too. Appreciate it.